Good evening, and thank you for joining us on the War Diary. On the 375th day of the war, here are the main highlights of the day at 7:30 p.m. Beirut time. Israeli attacks continued across Lebanese territory today, with over 50 localities in South Lebanon targeted. The Bekaa region also experienced multiple strikes. A devastating airstrike hit the Islamic Health Authority Center in Kilya, resulting in the deaths of 3 paramedics and the destruction of the facility. Furthermore, Israeli strikes rendered the hospital in Baalbek inoperable. In Beirut, Israeli warplanes released thermal balloons overnight. According to the Ministry of Public Health, since the onset of the war, 2,350 people have been killed and 10,906 have been injured. Yesterday's toll reported 41 dead and 124 injured. The Israeli army declared that its forces had targeted over 200 Hezbollah sites in Lebanon, including infrastructure, missile launchers, and weapon depots. Meanwhile, Hezbollah announced it had struck the Israeli settlement of Kiryat Shmona and the city of Haifa with a salvo of rockets. They also reported firing a rocket at the Tel Aviv suburb on Monday night, which triggered air raid sirens due to projectiles fired from Lebanon. The Israeli army stated that all aerial threats were intercepted. Additionally, Hezbollah claimed to have targeted gatherings of the Israeli army in Al-Marij, Rab 30, and Al-Baghdadi. The Israeli army reported encountering dozens of fighters from the pro-Iranian group and claimed to have killed them. During a recent speech, Hezbollah's Deputy Secretary General Naim Qasim asserted that Hezbollah will not be defeated in its war against Israel. He emphasized that the solution to end the war is a ceasefire, warning that if it weren't achieved, the group would strike everywhere in Israel. In an interview with AFP, caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati expressed his readiness to increase military personnel in South Lebanon if a ceasefire with Israel is achieved. He affirmed that the Lebanese state is prepared to assert its sovereignty over the entire territory, stating, and I quote, "We currently have 4,500 soldiers in the south, and we want to increase that number to between 7,000 and 11,000. According to his sources, the Israeli army is conducting brief incursions in the south without making any significant advances. Moreover, the UN has called for a quick, independent, and thorough investigation into the Israeli strike that killed 22 people, including 12 women and 2 children, on Monday in the village of Aito in northern Lebanon. The World Food Programme and UNICEF have also called for increased funding as humanitarian needs in Lebanon continue to rise. On the diplomatic front, Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani accused Israel of escalating hostilities in the Middle East to implement pre-established plans for the occupied West Bank and Lebanon. He stated, and I quote, "The simplest and safest way to stop the escalation at the border with Lebanon would be to end the extermination war in Gaza." In Gaza, an Israeli strike on the Beni Suhaila area east of Khan Yunis resulted in the deaths of children and an elderly man. Another strike targeted tents of displaced persons in Deir al-Balah. The Israeli army reported that it had conducted a strike targeting a command and control center located inside a complex that previously served as a hospital, namely the Shuhada al-Aqsa Hospital. The health ministry in the Gaza Strip reported 42,344 Palestinians killed since the onset of the war, including at least 55 in the last 24 hours. Internationally, UNICEF spokesperson James Elder stated, and I quote, "Today we are witnessing the worst restrictions on humanitarian aid that we have ever known. Every day the situation for children worsens compared to the day before." Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan called for sanctions and a boycott of Israel, stating that the time of diplomacy had passed. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu affirmed that his country would decide independently on potential targets to strike in Iran and retaliation to the Iranian missile attack, following calls from US President Joe Biden to spare oil and nuclear sites. He remarked, and I quote, "We listen to the opinions of the United States, but we will make our final decisions based on our national interest." That's all for today's recap. Join us tomorrow for another overview of the situation. Until then, stay connected with us on This Is Beirut's website and on all our social media platforms.